Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today's top three story. The first story is about the deal between Pakistan and US Navy. Now, according to sources, US Navy orders 9 AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters for Pakistan. Navy awarded $170 million contract for the manufacture. Helicopters will be delivered under foreign military sales program. Bell AH-1Z Viper is a twin-engine combat chopper, and we'll be talking about that in detail, what sort of a helicopter it is and what sort of capability it has, and what kind of use it is going to have when it is going to be inducted in Pakistan Army Aviation. So that is going to be our first topic. The second story we'll be talking about is the European Union deal with Turkey. It says one in, one out deal with tackle the migration crisis. Deal struck between EU and Turkey last month. Deal see one Syrian refugee pre-settled in EU for one returned to Turkey. Three boats carrying 202 people departed from Lesbos and Chios. Turkey agreed to accept 500 migrants per day. These migrants will be 500, that's a huge number for every day. Illegal migrants to Greece after 20th will be sent back. So this is going to be the second story, and we'll be talking about that in detail because the things out there are not that great. The next story is about the new captain now. The wicketkeeper Sarfraz replaces Shahid Afridi. Pakistan was humiliated in this, not only the Asia Cup but also in the World Cup. We could not even qualify for the semis. We lost to Indians, we lost to Aussies, we lost to Kiwis. The only match we won was against Bangladesh, and but that was the first match we played against them in the opening round. So now Sarfraz is the new captain, plus on top we've also learned that a lot more still needs to be done regarding the coach, the chief selector, the selection committee, as well as some other very high officials in the ranks of Pakistan Cricket Board. To talk about this story, the first story, on my right is Brigadier Tipu Sultan. Brigadier Saab was from Army Aviation, is also a defense analyst. So thank you very much for taking out your time. We also have with us Professor Dr. Okab Malik. He's a known strategic analyst from National Defense University. So thank you very much. So the first story is about these helicopters. Now, since when we talk about Air Force, the first picture which comes in your mind is an F-16, and now it's JF-17 Thunder. When you talk about Army Aviation, it's the Cobra anti-tank helicopters. So tell us about this AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters. We have heard that there will be 9 helicopters given to Pakistan. So what sort of a detail do you have about this story? Plus, what sort of the capability do these helicopters have? And we were earlier thinking that those, what was the name of that 35?
Mi-35.
Mi-35 Russian helicopters. What about that deal, sir?
Okay, I think there are no two countries in the world like Pakistan and US who had so uncertain relations yet very long. And Pakistan's army's main weapon systems have been based on the US origin. Like we had, it's a long journey of army aviation between 1947. We just had
even now
half a dozen Osters, and then in mid 80s we received the Cobra helicopters and all. But it is an enduring relationship, though Pakistan has diversified, rightly so, to the Russians also, and we are getting the Mi-35 also. This helicopter AH-1Z Viper, as it is called, has twin engine helicopter, 1800 shaft power each. It has got a 20 mm Gatling. It has got 75 mm rockets, 19 pods. It can fire Hellfire, and interestingly, it has got a Sidewinder AM-9 also, air-to-air.
Is it as superior as Apache, by the way, sir? Or Apache is comparatively a step ahead?
Well, it is a later helicopter than Apache. Apache was in service
in
mid-80s.
Okay.
And this helicopter went into service in year 2000. There are still 52 being used by the US Army. It's a pretty modern machine. It's formidable in its weapon system.
All weather, day and night operation.
All weather. It has a service ceiling of 20,000 feet, which is quite a bit for a attack helicopter.
For an attack helicopter, yes.
For an attack helicopter, is quite a bit. It has got a very reasonable all-up weight load. Its cruise is close to 300 kilometers. It is about 58 feet long and about close to 15 feet height.
That's a big helicopter.
It seats two in turn.
Mi-35 can carry, because it is an attack helicopter, but it can carry the troops also, about 8 or 9 of them.
The Americans,
what about this one, sir?
The Americans basically manufacture dedicated attack helicopters.
Okay.
Mi-35 is an assault attack helicopter. It can carry about 10 people inside also, and it has got its weapon system also. It's like a flying tank. It's built to take heavy small arm fire also. But Cobras and Vipers, they survive on its survivability in terms of its armament efficiency, in terms of its electronics.
Are these primarily anti-tank helicopters, sir?
Basically, Cobras and Apaches and all, they're basically anti-tank helicopters, and they're a formidable force in the hands of any army commander for flexibility in case of an offensive by the enemy.
Okay.
Basically by the armor formation. It is also, these helicopters are also very effective against terrorists. And these helicopters can actually fly low, go to the hideouts and kill a lot of people hiding in the jungles or bunkers on top of mountains, etc. They are very effective machines.
All right.
Its Gatling gun is simply devastating. It's very, very accurate. Even Cobra's Gatling is very accurate. So these are formidable machines. What is important is that Pakistan today is in a position to get these machines from the Russians and from the Americans too. In fact, there is a very interesting story going on in the world media that China, Russia and America compete to supply attack helicopters to Pakistan. So we have come a long way from the Pressler Amendment and these sanctions and all that. When the American Congress put sanctions, even now there was an Indian pressure and there was a lot of discussion.
On the F-16,
it got cleared after some time. I think what needs to be done by Pakistan Army is that it is time. It is a diplomatic time for us. The government of Pakistan has got a warming of relations with the Russians also, and I think we should not put all our eggs in one basket, and we should diversify.
We should go for these as well as for the Mi-35. So that should be the ideal
basically, you know, the trouble is that when you are operating armament from one origin, like Bell helicopters, Cobras, and now AH-1Z, so your maintenance system and your base workshops and your orientation to the dedicated attack helicopter is such that it's difficult for the army to have so many weapon systems on its
and maintain all. It's just like if you're keeping a dealership of a Mercedes, don't opt for a BMW in that case. Somewhat like that. Now, Dr. Karpna, a couple of points. But this is called the modern version of Cobra helicopters, or you can say that these particular ones are super Cobra models. This is what they believe. But Cobra is comparatively much smaller. I think it's not more than 3 feet wide, and you know, a twin-seater.
36 inches.
36 inches, that's 3 feet. A pilot in the front and the pilot in the rear, and it's a very good combat machine. As compared to that, first of all, since Brigadier Saab has also told us that what is the comparison of the two. And now, sir, US Navy is selling this, and the final deal is going to be done in 2018, say another 2 years from now. And as Brigadier Saab mentioned, that more than 50 helicopters are still being used, it's a modern version. What sort of a difference will it make for the Pakistan aviation primarily?
I think you've got to look at what we're doing right now. What is our need for them? There's obviously some discontent with our neighbors in India and why we're getting these things. But we have a necessity for these on the front, the frontier, you could say, with Afghanistan against terrorists. And that should be our primary aim. These helicopters are very good, avionics and everything else that they can do, but they can be protected against assaults by terrorists who know the mountains very well. Let me take you back to Afghanistan, where the Mi helicopters, the gunships that the Soviets used, with devastating effect in Afghanistan until
the Stingers came.
Until the Stingers came, and that was the end of that.
And then you remember that name, Mullah Rockety, at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't miss a single shot.
we were looking at least around 30 aircraft per month being downed. And that was devastating for the Soviet Union, and that helped lead to a rapid
Stingus played a
collapse.
major role
That
in
turned the war over.
It did. However, we could have taken these stingers a long time before then, but they wanted to bleed the Russians or Soviet Union a bit more before then, to instill a bit of fervor and collapse the economy, which was already going down a different route.
So the Indians recently signed a lot of deals with the French, with the British, as well as with the Americans. They're also getting a lot of aviation stuff from them, in particular these, even Apache helicopters. So we don't create that kind of a hue and cry the way they do.
Well, they see everything as a threat, don't they? I mean, we know that they're much bigger than us. We know that conventionally we cannot compete with them. But anything that we get, especially if it's from the United States, who the Indians think is a special relationship with them, and given what we've been through over the last few years, especially the last 4 or 5 years with the Americans, they feel this as a threat to their relationship with the Americans as well, their special relationship that they think they have. One thing
the
they forget,
strategic partners, yes, sir.
one thing that's what it is. It's still a transactional relationship, and America is going to do whatever it is in its interest,
Correct.
and it's going to balance China and Russia. And let's not kid ourselves. That deal with 4 Mi-35 Hind attack helicopters last year has played a part in this deal. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Maybe it was going on for a little while, but that may have pushed it a little further to balance that relationship. I think it's very important, and I think we're doing a good job there. I think we should try to get out as much as we can for our own defense, and recognize that everything is always, in international relations, is a transactional relationship, and we shouldn't have a hue and cry about friendships. We're here for our own strategic interests, and if they align with other countries, fine. We should defend ourselves and our interests primarily.
Right.
Yeah? And that's more important than anything. I think this deal is pretty good for us, and it'll enhance our capability against the terrorists in Fatah and other areas in the country.
Correct.
And that's what we should aim at. We should project that out further.
These
And that's our
helicopters
primary
can also do the
aim.
surveillance and look after the border,
Yes.
and protect
And
the frontiers of
given,
Pakistan.
given that it's got all day, all night capability, that will enhance us significantly
Because
more.
a lot of helicopters do not fly at night in Pakistan. Except
Our
for a few.
capability wasn't there
Yeah.
much,
Yeah,
especially what
wasn't there.
happened in 2011.
And also in 2005, you couldn't even send your helicopters at night. You couldn't do the missions.
So this is a significant enhancement in our capability.
But
really.
the number is 9. Should have been 90. Could have been better.
Well,
But
yeah,
any-
it's all about the money. really, isn't it?
One thing I must tell you, this go to the credibility of Pakistan Army, that it is able to maintain itself in training and equipment at par with modern armies of the world.
That's correct, sir.
Despite all the trouble and engagement inside, across Afghanistan, and threat from India and all. Let me also tell you that the Indians know their financial weight and diplomatic weight and the size that it has, and its bogey against China that the world wants to know and hear, particularly the West. And therefore, anything that Pakistan gets from small thing to a bigger thing, the Indians must raise hue and cry over that. And the Indians know that the Americans have been turning a blind eye to the problem in Kashmir, to the problem that the terrorism that India is generating within Pakistan. And look, the West is completely blind on Kalbosh, that Indian agent that has been arrested, that's arrested here. That is understandable. I think we need to go and we need to beef up our diplomatic effort, all right. But I think Pakistan has done well in maintaining a relationship, a working relationship.
Which was a very, very difficult equation.
With
but
America.
Yet they did it. I mean, yes.
They did it, and it is to our diplomatic success and balance, I must say. The Foreign Office has done well. The Pentagon has its own relations with the GHQ. They understand that the importance of Pakistan Army, the war against terror.
So do we
and all
have two separate parallel systems? For example, the diplomatic relation between the Foreign Office and the United States of America, for example, other than Pentagon, I'm talking about the White House or the State Department, for instance. Then you are talking about another relationship that is between Pentagon and GHQ. Is it true?
Let me tell you, Faisal, that the American establishment has an impact on the American foreign policy. And the relations between the Pentagon and the GHQ has served well for Pakistan. Although there is a dichotomy
There has always been,
There
especially post-Salala
always
incident,
been.
yes.
But under difficult times, I think these relationships came as a benefit to Pakistan, particularly what we are facing in South Asia. Although it would be better if the political government and the military relations are in unison, which they are to an extent now. The Americans are also a little bit worried on the Russian resurgence and warming up of relations between the Russians
And
and the Pakistanis.
And imagine,
They
sir, jointly
are
doing a military exercise.
the military exercise.
I never thought of it.
Imagine that. And of course, the $2 billion gas pipeline is also very significant development between Russia and Pakistan. Let me also tell you that in the conventional mode, so far, although India is taking leaps forward because of its strong economy and increasing defense
Sir, the
budget.
Indians have also developed their own helicopters. This is what we have learned, but their program regarding that jet which they were manufacturing was an absolute failure. Now, a couple of points, sir. The Europeans, they made Tornado aircraft. They were Harriers. They were slow because they used to take off like this, vertical takeoff from the ships and all. And then the Mirage 2000, I still remember there was a time when Pakistan was about to sign a deal with the French regarding Mirage 2000. But
Raptor is like that.
So now, sir, our focus is primarily on F-16s because that is where our strength is. And now this GF-17 Thunder. Now, sir, if we can overhaul the engine of F-16, that's called F-100, 100%, where you can overhaul Mirages, and you have the certificate for that. You can overhaul F-7Ps, A-5s, and all these aircrafts which are practically in use, and you are practically manufacturing GS-17 Thunder from scratch, sir, except for a few components for some of the hard points where you fix in those sidewinders. You're doing that, sir. You have made Zarar, Al-Khalid tanks, I mean, top of the line, sir. You have made best assault rifles, you have made G3s, you name it and you have done it. Why can't we make or manufacture helicopters, sir, according to our own
I'll come to that,
requirement?
but you made a very important point. The Indians have been trying to manufacture some sort of a fighter since ages. They couldn't even manufacture Mi-21 properly, MiG-21
They can't even overhaul, sir.
Yeah, not even overhaul and all that. They are far behind us in tanks and other avionics equipment. There are organizations like Air Weapons Complex, like Kamra, that we should be very proud of these assets that we have. They're doing tremendous job. Let me tell you, I commanded an attack helicopter brigade, which is called Combat Group, and we had this Pressler amendment and these laws against us in which they had stopped our night vision and all that. And I went and saw ABM Shahid in the Air Weapons Complex. The Americans were asking $47 million from us. And Shahid did it for me without having to spend 5 rupees. The Americans were shocked that we developed our own night capability in the Cobra helicopters which we are using. So I think Pakistan is way ahead of its contemporary countries in these things. The manufacture of helicopter is a little different than the manufacture of fixed-wing aircraft. Everything is rotating, it's got its blade system, it's got its...
The flying technique is totally different.
It's totally different, it's very complicated.
Because a helicopter can go like this, can come back and can move in all the directions. It can go up, it can go down. I mean,
imagine the engine is fixed along the horizontal axis and the transmission converts its power vertically up. Then you have to balance the main rotor with the tail rotors and all that. So it's a difficult thing to do. You have to.
But the task is not impossible. Sir, if you can make
it is not impossible.
Thunder from scratch. I've seen those sheaves. I've seen this GF-17 Thunder being built from scratch, sir, practically, but this is pretty classified also, but from scratch till the final machine with the third, fourth generation avionics. And trust me, sir, it was as good. Maybe the finishing is not as great as an F-16, but otherwise, sir, because one of my course mate happens to be the test pilot of this GF-17 Thunder, and I asked him, and he said, well, Faisal, this machine is, trust me, as good as an F-16. Look at the performance which recently we have witnessed on the 23rd of March. I mean, your heart was this big, sir.
But I've been a part of the study of a prospect or a project to manufacture helicopters in Pakistan. There is something called economic viability. There is something called the transfer of technology and relationship with the countries that from the components that you want to get. There is something called the overall benefit, operational benefit of that. And we came to the conclusion that manufacturing of helicopters within Pakistan right now, according to our economic condition and operation requirement, perhaps is not a viable thing. Let me also say over here that lucky for us, why have we developed night capability of helicopters ourselves, and to go on the bigger scale, why have we developed GF-17 Thunder? Because the Americans had stopped supplying us
the spare parts of the F-16,
spare parts and all that. No. So we developed the weapon systems in which the Americans were surprised. The Indians wanted a cold start. We developed the tactical nuclear weapons on which they are sound.
So we are smarter than them. Quick comment on this, Dr. Saab. Now you talk about Bell helicopters, you talk about the Cobra attack helicopters, you talk about the French Pumas, or you talk about the Helvets, or you talk about Llamas, for instance, or you talk about Mi-17 or Mi-19, the Russian technology. Don't you think that now it's as high time that we also need to, because you know Pakistan, every year we face this problem of floods, earthquakes, and you know we do not have the capacity primarily. So we end up, you know, asking other nations, or people do, you know, pledge and all. Don't you think we also need to focus on other side of the manufacturing, that is to transport and for the rescue and relief activities, rather than just attack helicopters? Would you like to comment on that?
Well, that's exactly what the Brigadier was saying. Feasibility. Yes, we're going to see more floods. Climate change is a real fact. We're going to have more problems. We're going to have a necessity for more transport. Helicopters especially in those zones where other aircraft can't get to. And these are the best options we have. But is it a better option to manufacture and make a whole industry and put time and effort into that, or acquire them from the outside, which costs a lot less?
That's correct, but you know, if you'll have your own industry, countries like Saudi Arabia, South Africa, so many Gulf states,
well, that's the thing you see. That's the thing you see. You're talking
Myanmar
about
even,
providing this industry
to be used.
But we've got a hell of a lot more to do in this country than make helicopters. There's a lot more industry and infrastructure building that is required. I think with the new CPAC that's going to occur, we're going to have a flood of money coming in. That might provide an avenue for an industry to be created. I think we'll be very successful in that. I think we've got the right brains. There's no difference between us and any other nation in the world if we put our minds to it. It's a matter of putting the minds to it. I think we can do that. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But at this moment in time, it's all about the cash. We need to assign relevant resources in relevant areas in a prioritized basis right now. Helicopters are a must. There's no doubt about that. But we have to put that according to what our other needs are. And there's plenty of other needs that are competing, and that's what a government does. It assigns priority according to what the needs are based on different areas of the country.
So for example, the current priority of the government is to have enough funds to settle down the IDPs or the TDPs, whatever you may call them. That is the first priority, rather than setting up a factory for the helicopters. But at some stage, I mean, we need to learn.
Well, I think you're right. We need to do something like this, and that's a future.
Well, I think
industrialization of our country requires this,
and
many other aspects.
To small countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, for instance, Middle Eastern.
We could do that, and we could be very competitive, but we've got to be as good, and that requires a lot more money. And I think the manufacturing industry in this country, there's a big difference. It's state-owned in such dimensions, and that's where the problem lies. In comparison to other countries, such as in Europe and the US and others.
So out there,
where they contract out, our security
or you
issues
talk about a couple of other huge manufacturers, whether it's Boeing or whether it's McDonnell Douglas, for instance. The point is that it's a private, I mean, the military will give a contract, or the Air Force or the Navy will give a contract, or CIA, for instance, will give a contract. And those people do understand the exact need, and then they manufacture according to the demand of the.
But they're under strict regulations and secrecy laws here as well, and that's where the problem lies.
So you can't even do paragliding in Kerala because of the security reasons, because the Prime Minister House and the President House.
We've got very immense existential threats here. Now, if we're going to diversify an industrial base, we're going to have to open it up as a free market economy. Yeah?
The changing time will tell you. The changing times will tell you that there is a stage of any nation to go into a project. There is a proper economic threshold. I think Pakistan is a struggling economy. Let's admit that. And then if you look at the defense industry of the world, like you said yourself that the US Army gives a requirement to McDonnell Douglas or Boeing or Lockheed or Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines for F-16s, etc. The development countries or the third world countries, say, if they manufacture any military hardware, it is not in the private sector, it is in the public sector, mostly controlled by the armed forces.
Correct.
So unless you manufacture
So it could be a
anything,
joint venture, public sector, private sector
whether you
partnership.
manufacture a car or whether you manufacture an airplane, unless it is in the corporate sector, it will be a law of diminishing returns if you just start to manufacture helicopters and fighters for your own army.
So we do. I mean, we do have a setup of we still. I remember, sir, because ever since we were born, we used to see these Toyota Jeeps, whether it was FJ40 or later on it was RKR. In army, sir, with the ones they use. And now it's Land Rover and so many other machines. But sir, I think it's high time that we need to get self-sufficient.
But Land Rover is in the private sector also.
That is what my point is.
But he's right in this. My point here as well, as I think it is an agreement, is that if you're going to industrialize, you need to open up and not be state controlled completely. But there's a security concern here. Fine, we can overwhelm that. We can change that. The idea is that if we open up, we'll have competition with these companies that are here.
Indeed.
And this competition in itself breeds more excellence for resources and building better machines, better models, better, and in comparison to the rest of the world as well. I mean,
it's
that's
all about
essential for us.
manufacturing, it's all about technology.
That's what it is.
So
We've got to open up. We're not a free
More
market economy in
employment,
real terms.
technical know-how, and then on top, if you're exporting, you're getting a lot of revenue.
But we've got to be able to not be just state-owned. That's where the problem lies. And he's right. Diminishing.
All right. Thank you very much, Sabir Saab. Thank you very much, Dr. Kaab. Time for a short break. We'll return and then we'll continue to talk about the next topic. Stay with us.
In our lives, we are known by what we do. But who is to differentiate between what we do and what we're meant to do? PTV World. They have no wings, but they fly. They have no fangs, but they bite. They have no eyes, but they witness. Rumors, the war on minds. PTV World, shunning rumors.
Welcome back after the break. Now we'll be talking about a very interesting deal between Turkey and the European Union, and that is about the exchange of immigrants. What exactly is going to happen? According to the sources, that one in, one out deal will see one Syrian refugee resettled in Europe for every one returned to Turkey. This is according to the immensity. Turkey is forcing refugees back into Syria, which Ankara denies. Now, what exactly is going on out there, and what is this one in, one out deal? What we have learned in management and marketing, last in, first out, that's called LIFO and FIFO formula. But interestingly, Doctor, what is this one in, one out kind of a deal? I mean, if, for example, if I'm a immigrant. I'm from Syria, and for somehow, you know, I've been able to reach the European Union with my kids and with my wife. Now, what is my future? What is going to happen? Should I be, I mean, what exactly is going to happen? This is a pretty confusing kind of a deal for me, sir.
Right, if you've looked at the statistics about today's happenings, events, 202 migrants were returned from Lesbos, the island, Greek island, to Turkey. You'll notice that there was about 132 Pakistanis on there, a few Afghanis, and the next ship.
Now, that is where the problem is.
But that's what I'm saying. So they're not Syrian. And they're economic migrants. Let's not kid ourselves here. Yeah? I don't
You
think...
have to differentiate the two.
We have to differentiate, and that's where they're going to lessen the burden. Real migrants based on war and threat to survival, etc., in
Will be
Syria
allowed.
is very different. But look, who they're returning, who they're sending, who they sent. They sent about 60, wasn't it, to Germany, to Hanover. And they were Syrians who'd come through to Turkey, had not gone beyond, who'd been waiting.
They've been
to move on.
contained. in a way.
Contained,
Yeah.
and they've earned, as far as they see it, a right to find a better place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yet those migrants are there not because of war, out of necessity, who just want to earn a better living, which is fine in that respect. But because it's all come at once, Europe can't soak it all in, and it's causing a lot of social problems there. So they would, to justify it politically, they'd rather have those people who are more in need to be resettled, who have no alternative. And there's not much alternative right now in Syria. So that makes sense, I think, to take the burden off these European countries, especially Greece, which is inundated with migrants from different places, in North Africa and the Middle East and Afghanistan and Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Yes, that is where the problem is. So we have Rasul Sattar from TRT from Turkey. Assalamu alaikum, Rasul Saab. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Well, line was dropped anyway. That happens sometimes in the live shows.
live.
So anyway, now point number 2. So one in, one out. So those who are already, for example, I'm talking about only Syrians. Forget about the rest of the world, whether they're Africans from the Middle East, Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Asia, whatever. Those who have already, and sir, once again, he's online with us. Assalamu alaikum, Rasul. Hello. My brother, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so what is this deal about now?
Hello.
The Turkish, they have signed a deal with the European Union. Earlier in our program, we were talking about the lacunas, which has somehow or the other, there are a lot of lacunas in this particular deal. How would you differentiate, A, between various nationalities? Because we have also learned that a lot of people from other origins have been able to get hold of the Syrian passport, A. And secondly, what is this deal about? How will they pursue? Do you think this is a viable proposition, or something worse can happen actually at the end of the day?
Sorry, I cannot get your voice clearly, but what I got talking about the refugee crisis and the deal between Turkey and European Union. So mainly, I will say that the main target of All right.
Sir, please go ahead. Unfortunately, the problem is that we can't understand the accent, and secondly, there's a line problem too. So if I may ask the same question to you, which I had earlier put on. Please, sir, go ahead, sir. Would you like to answer that? What about those who have been able to get hold of the Syrian passports? Now, that is another concern.
Syrian passports who are not Syrian.
Yes, sir.
Well, they're not Syrian. They're not eligible, really, are they?
But they're having the pass. They are having all the legal documents.
Let's look at it this
way.
way. I think they'll be doing a lot of vetting here. How are they going to find out whether a certain person is Syrian or not will probably depend upon employing Syrians to figure that out.
To filter them.
Why not?
That's the best way?
I mean, what else? But that has problems, doesn't it? Political affiliations, religious, sectarian affiliations, etc. The employees are human beings with their own biases. Who's going to filter what, and is it going to be credible? they may ask certain questions. Maybe they'll be more refined like this, or there'll be an overview on that. But I think there's a necessity for that, because this thing happens all over the world. Human trafficking this is the basis of it.
This is what they're making millions and billions.
They're making so you're going to try to cut that out. I think it's important to cut that enterprise out, because it is damaging for the countries, whichever country that might be taking the people in
Now,
Europe.
sir, a couple of more points. The Syrian crisis was there, is there. According to official sources, 300,000 people have been killed. Some people say the actual number is actually 600,000, because the media isn't there. The Western media is reporting that they are biased, obviously. They have their own version to tell. When you look at RT or for example, the press television, they have something else to inform. There is an absolute chaos, absolute confusion as far as reporting is concerned. Now, my point is, sir, don't you think this is high time, rather than looking after this particular problem? This is one of the major problems, because this is about humans and their lives. Look at those kids. I saw this picture of father giving a piece of bread to a young son who was not more than 4 or 5 years old, and the father was crying. I mean, these pictures really break your heart, you know, when you're a father yourself and you see that I can't do anything. This is beyond my control. Don't you think this is high time that the countries who have created this mess should clean it too? And there should be some external pressure from various other, whether the Americans were involved, they should be told to clean it up. Give a certain amount of fund, resettle these people in certain areas, forget about going to Europe or elsewhere. Let's rebuild Iraq and rebuild Syria.
I think.
Or this is just a...
Yeah, I mean, it's very emotional. But there's no harm in that. I think it is an emotional issue. But we've got to be strategic in this. We've got to be unemotional when we make decisions that have a lot of gravity in them.
What about the compensation of all those people who have died, sir? The Americans blamed Bashar al-Assad's regime. Bashar al-Assad says this is their job.
But you know, this is where it's a blame game. You can go around the table too many times.
The Russians say they have not killed even a single civilian. When you look at CNN, even after the deal, when the Russians were moving out, they were showing visuals that, well, this bazaar was attacked by the Russians, and see what has happened.
I think
and
a rational approach would be better. A rational approach is where countries...
Russian approach or a rational approach?
Right, not a Russian approach.
Yeah.
A rational approach based on cost-benefit analysis, in other words, the pros and cons balanced out, but taken responsibility for those vested parties that are interested in the future of Syria. And that also includes the Arab countries, and Iran, and Turkey. And Turkey's taken a lot of burden on this.
Which Arab countries? Can you name a few? Jordan is not ready. Look at the role of
Saudi
Egypt.
should be there.
Sir, Saudi Arabia, they are not ready to go to Saudi Arabia, sir. They offer, but they're not ready to go.
But you know, the thing is,
why would
what are they going to provide? What are they going to provide in Saudi? What's Saudi going to provide? It's going to provide a good alternative for somebody to go to. But when it comes to a peaceful society and choosing death and destruction, what choice have you got, really? If this is your option, you should place that option down here. You know, Syria is predominantly Sunni, so there isn't really that much of difference as far as religious observation is concerned with Saudi Arabia. There may be a certain amount of Wahhabism and Salafism which is different from what the Syrians have, but there is a certain rationale there that they should take responsibility as well and be pushing that. Take responsibility and push for it. And I think there are a lot of migrants in Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries as well. But Turkey's taken a heavy burden. There's no doubt about that, and that's where the deal is.
Turkey has been sucked into this war, sir.
And it's taken a heavy burden. And there was a recent article I was watching, the Pakistanization of Ankara and Turkey, meaning the bombings are started up and Turkey is suffering, like we have suffered because of Afghanistan for the last nearly 40 years.
It started exactly in the same manner.
And you know, I wondered about
this. At the moment.
I wondered about this when the Iraq war was occurring and how Turkey was going to get pulled into this because they're being part of NATO, and how they should have stopped that, but then they couldn't because they're neighbors. And
it's a NATO ally. We're a non-NATO ally.
But naturally there's cross-border incursions everywhere.
Non-European NATO ally. That's the problem. Last quick comment before I move on to last subject. It's about Turkey. Do you think Turkey was really, Erdogan was the prime minister, the president is a very, very powerful man. Though the popularity has gone down significantly, there's a lot of there has been a lot of problem there as well. But sir, having said that, do you believe at some stage, when you look at Turkey as a country, $900 billion worth of economy, a very powerful military, everything is just going fine for them. Look at the tourism, look at the emergence of Turkey, look at their exports. I mean, $800 billion worth of only all exports. They have everything. And they really helped Pakistan during those times when there was an amendment on Pakistan. But having said that, sir, now they have been sucked into this war. Bad relationship with Russia into the neighborhood. Unfortunately, whether good, bad or ugly, their geographic location is another problem. My point is, do you see Turkey getting out of this mess soon, or they have been sucked in to that level, the problem will continue for another couple of years?
Oh, it's going to carry on much longer than that.
Wow.
They've had a very significant problem in the Kurdish areas in eastern Turkey for a long time. The more autonomous region Kurdish areas in northern Iraq.
So PKK is like TTP for them?
Well, you know, TTP is a very religious organization which has been used by external actors like India, for example. And they have their own narrative, but it's more nationalistic and ethnic, sectarian, not sectarian, because they share the same religion. But it's more ethnic and historical, really, than anything else. And with the rise of northern Iraq, Kurdish community becoming more self-sufficient economically, and now showing itself a little bit more. And
look at the resilience of the people, especially women.
And the Syrian Kurds, this plays a lot of heavy thinking as far as the Turkish government is concerned. And that's going to carry on. That's not a simple issue. There are different parties who support the Kurds and who are against Kurdish unification, for example, which has never been a state before, because the local parties, where it was Turkey, the Ottomans at that time, the Persian Empire, the Arabs, kept the Kurds down for a reason, because they didn't want them to unite.
Saddam Hussein was the guy who actually kept them.
I mean, he was just the ones in Iraq, but there was a certain understanding between these countries, and that may prevail again.
Yeah.
However, there's no certainty in war. There's no certainty in war.
They are getting a lot of support. They're like the tribal people living in Pakistan. It's more or less like that. But anyway, Dr. Kaf, it was a pleasure talking to you, sir. I wish I had more time to talk more about this particular issue. But definitely in the coming weeks, we'll be talking about that in detail also. But moving on to our last topic, and that is about cricket. Now, Sarfaraz Ahmed. Sarfaraz dhoga nahi dega. Finally, Sarfaraz has been named as the captain of Pakistan T20 cricket team. Shahid Afridi is no more the captain. Sarfaraz is already the vice captain of the ODI team, and he will now take over the T20 captaincy from Shahid Afridi, who stepped down from this particular role following Pakistan's early exit in the recently concluded World T20 in India, as well as the Asia Cup. He said that I'm very happy to have this opportunity. I'm honored that PCB trusted my ability to lead the country. He was talking to ESPN Cricket Info. Indeed, it is a challenging job, but at the same time, it's the highest privilege in a cricketer's life. So I'm determined to do my best to justify my position. I didn't make any future plan, but I will sit down with the PCB and we'll talk about it in due course. And at the same time, when you talk about the other management staff, whether you're talking about the chief selector, you're talking about the manager, you're talking about the coach, or you're talking about the assistant manager, all these posts will be changed. You talk about Harun Rashid Saab, or you talk about Waqar Yunus. They have been absolute failures, unfortunately. People like Wasim Akram eventually, look at what they did, what he did in particular to Kolkata Knight Riders, one of the best bowlers they have produced, Shah Rukh Khan's team. At the same time, you look at the, I would say what a brilliant team Inzamam has prepared in the form of one team. Look at the way they play. They beat these world champions, interestingly, by 5 or 6 runs. And the way they went after that total of almost 210 against South Africa, they were brilliant. So if there is a good coach, if there is a technically correct person for the right job, things do matter then in that case. Over here, there is politics, politics and politics. Look what has happened to our squash. We were unbeatable. 555 consecutive matches were won by Jahangir Khan. And I know exactly what happened because he happens to know me. And I did ask him this question, that once this squash court was named after him, he has remained the president of the World Squash Federation also. And then the politics intervened. Politics intervened in hockey. We were unbeatable. Look where we are at the moment and where we are in the cricket. Wherever there is politics, whether it's PIA or railway or you name it, you have your people of your choice, then that is what is the end result. At the end of the day, it's the institution in any country. It's not the country itself. Please try to understand that. And look what you have done to our sports, what you have done to our youth. For God's sake, think about the country. Forget about the next election. Think about your future. These are not the demographic dividends, by the way. These are going to be demographic disasters, and you'll see what is going to happen. So for God's sake, the Prime Minister or the President, whosoever the person who's in charge, for God's sake, save our cricket, save our sports, save our youth. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say for this hour. I'll see you again. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.